House Freedom Caucus Chair, other Republicans back Trump in designating Antifa a terror organization. Okay, so they become designated a terror organization. What does that mean? What are the implications? Does it have any teeth to it whatsoever other than Trump saying something? Let's get into it. Here we go.
Given all the that's going on with Charlie Kirk's assassination and the left-wing violence going on, do you have plans? And actually, this is a great opportunity with all these. Do you plan on designating Antifa finally a domestic terror organization?
Well, it's something I would do, yeah. If I have support from the people back here, I think we'd start with Pam, I think. But I would, if you give me, I would do that 100%. And others also, by the way. But Antifa is terrible.
There's groups, if you can make it.
There are other groups, yeah. There are other groups. We have some pretty radical groups, and they got away with murder. And also, I've been speaking to the Attorney General about bringing RICO against some of the people that you've been reading about that have been putting up millions and millions of dollars for agitation. These aren't protests. These are crimes, what they're doing, where they're throwing bricks at cars of ICE and Border Patrol. They come in a beautiful new car. They're so proud. It's Border Patrol, ICE, it's got whatever it is. And they're throwing rocks at it.
Yep.
After 50 yards, it looks like an old beat-up vehicle. It was just brand new. It was just bought for the purposes. And they don't have to take that anymore. I let it be known. We'll take responsibility. They don't have to take it anymore. And they don't want to take it. They were told by a past administration, it became almost a culture. If somebody throws a rock at you, do nothing. If somebody spits in your face, do nothing. And I say, when they spit, you hit. Do whatever you want. You do whatever the hell you want. I watched it so sick it made me. For 4 years, I had to sit home and watch people screaming at policemen and spitting in their face. And they
100%.
Do anything. They just had a grin and bear. They're standing up like a piece of steel. And a woman, in many cases, women, you can see they're professional agitators. I had one the other night. I had 4 the other night, all in one group, total phonies. That started to scream when I got into a restaurant, something with Palestine. And I said, well, I'm doing a good job for peace in the Middle East. I should get lots of awards for that, right? With the Abraham Accords and everything else. But a woman just stood up and started screaming. And she got booed out of the place, too. There were a lot of people in the restaurant. I went there to show how safe, and it was safe. I mean, the woman is just a mouthpiece. All she was a paid agitator. And you have a lot of them. And I've asked Pam to look into that in terms of RICO, bringing RICO cases against the criminal RICO, because they should be put in jail. What they're doing to this country is really subversive.
Well, there you have the president's take on what that looks like. He also says, I'm pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I'm designating Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization. I will also be strongly recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordance with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter, the president declared on Truth Social. All right, so he went down the road during his first presidency talking about Black Lives Matter being designated a terrorist organization, and also Antifa being designated a terrorist organization. But what does that really mean? You know what I mean? Unless there's really nothing domestic terrorism wise that you can do, that the government can do. They can do domestic terrorist groups from outside, and you've got tons of those. MS-13, whole bunch of Tren de Aragua, those have been listed as terrorist organizations. But as far as Antifa, I don't know. He'd have to come up with some kind of hat trick to make that happen. I want to go back to, let's watch this for a second. This is one of those clips where people say that Antifa isn't violent or Antifa isn't organized. That is complete nonsense. They are highly organized. They just don't disclose who their leadership is. And oftentimes, it's a very not tall, young lady. That has been my experience. Some of those chicks are just tough as nails, or they appear that way. You know what I mean? One of the women that I saw at 𝗧𝗜𝗠𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗬, she was gnarly. No other word. I mean, if you didn't know she was a chick, you'd say that is a thin dude who is just, oh. You know what I mean? You're like, ugh, what are we even doing? But that's Antifa. They've got that reputation. They've got that kind of exterior posing. They try and act all tough, and at the end of the day, they're just not. They're just not that tough. But they are extremely violent, very violent, very violent. Let's take a quick peek. Let's watch some violence right here, or some attempted violence. This is down in Portland. Now, in Portland, they had 170 nights of just straight rioting. And Biden was like, yeah, everything's good, mostly peaceful. Tear gas Teddy, mayor, he's like, yeah, it's great. Photo op. He's got the soccer moms there. This is one of those events where you look at a member of Antifa with a hammer looking to basically take a whack at a federal officer coming out of this doorway. Let's watch it. A little bit of light coming through there. Bracing for moral support. Oh. Oh, that guy. He just got rocked. That's not going to work out well. Okay, so now is the federal building in downtown Portland. I went there with my son, Brandon. I covered this. Antifa is violent. Let's not. Antifa is extremely violent. And the notion that they're not organized, that they're a loose ideology is just complete nonsense. That's what CBN News has to say. Let's keep going here.
The FBI is investigating claims that a group of evangelical Christians were targeted. And the White House is responding after violence at a prayer rally in Washington state over the weekend.
Yep.
The mayor blamed Christians for the turmoil at the event, calling it a, quote, far-right rally after a demonstration at Seattle City Hall this week.
Our mayor, Bruce Harrell, said that Christians having basically a worship service, outdoor church, is a far-right extremist group, so that he could try and get that far-left vote because he's coming up for re-election, and he is behind. We've got a bunch of politicians doing that here in Seattle. So he's trying to get that far-left extremist vote. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Christians, they're far-right extremists. I mean, yeah, of course.
The story.
So bad.
The prayer rally in Seattle's Cowell Park Saturday quickly turned violent when members from the LGBTQ community and Antifa showed up to protest.
One of them actually pulled a knife and threatened a 17-year-old on our side. And not to mention, while the kids were getting haircuts, there was actually sexually, explicit, lewd acts being done directly in front of the children.
The rally was held in an area with a well-known
Swell.
gay neighborhood at the direction of the city. Ross Johnston, co-leader of the Mayday USA prayer event, tells CBN News they knew there would be protests, but he never expected such violence.
Multiple police officers were assaulted. There was water balloons with urine being thrown. There were 2 people who rushed the stage.
The FBI is looking into charges of attacks on religious believers. Dan Bongino, the FBI's deputy director, wrote on X Tuesday, "We have asked our team to fully investigate allegations of targeted violence against religious groups at the Seattle concert. Freedom of religion isn't a suggestion."
How about Andy Ngo? Let's watch this clip on Andy Ngo. Andy Ngo, probably the most preeminent author and expert on Antifa, used to be in Portland, used to be in Oregon, but he has since moved, and I don't believe he's living there. I know he's not living there anymore. I think he's outside of the country. But, and I get his newsletter, and I think he's got great information. He got rocked. Antifa rocked him. Antifa rocked Cam Higby. He goes undercover at Antifa rallies and reports what's going on, as well as Brandy Cruz here in Seattle during the ICE. Antifa was protesting ICE deporting criminal illegals because, you want to have more criminals in your midst, because that's always a good idea. Now, these guys and gals, they protest just whatever the flavor of the day is. I think they're well funded. I think they're well funded by far left and left organizations, by the Democrats in general. Every single time something comes up, boom, there they are. They're ready to roll. But if you don't think that Antifa is violent, check this out with Andy Ngo. They call it the milkshake incident, and it's just horrific. And yet the left and media is like, oh, they're mostly peaceful. Every now and then an incident happens.
I just got beat up by the crowd. No police at all. In the middle of the street, and they stole my GoPro, and he punched me several times in my face and my head. I'm bleeding.
And a brain bleed, I believe.
They stole my evidence. They stole my GoPro.
Andy, can I take care of your medical needs right now? Is that okay? We'll worry about that in a little bit. Okay, can you tell me where you're at?
Downtown Port.
Can you tell me who the president is? I know they're dumb questions.
Trump.
Okay. So tell me what happened. Looks like you got hit in the forehead a little bit, in the eye.
They just started attacking me.
Okay, what did they use?
Their weapons in their hands.
Okay.
Subarachnoid hemorrhage, brain bleed.
You mind if I take a look?
Go ahead.
They're savages. Antifa is savages. Everybody knows it. Nobody wants to admit it. How about this one? When we're just going through examples of the violence and why Antifa should be, designated some kind of terrorist organization, whether it's domestic, which isn't really a thing, or international terrorist organization. They are obviously in other countries. Then you can hit them up the RICO. I don't know. Suspect in fatal shooting of Portland right-wing protester killed by law enforcement. So there was I think it was a prayer. It's one of the prayer groups, Patriot Prayer. Hours after an interview was posted online in which Michael Reinhold took responsibility for the fatal shooting on Saturday of Patriot Prayer supporter Aaron Danielson in Portland, Reinhold was killed by law enforcement officers as they attempted to arrest him in Olympia, Washington. So he scuttled out of Portland because he murdered a Patriot Prayer dude walking in the streets of downtown Portland. And he got capped. They killed him. They walked up to him and shot him. They were hiding in a parking garage, as I remember, and walked out and just killed him. So when you want to say, and we'll get to what the mainstream media kind of alludes to as far as Antifa goes, they're, in my opinion, they're very violent. And in my personal experience, and I've been around Antifa multiple times, whether it's Chop Chaz, whether it was down in Portland, whether it's at the Rattle in Seattle, that was a month after the prayer group that we saw there in Cal Anderson Park. The Rattle in Seattle was just it was a church group having a big church service at City Hall. And police officers kept Antifa outside and kept the group that was having a worship service inside on a terrace. It kind of separated. I was out in the street with Antifa because that's where I wanted to be able to have these conversations with you. Antifa is absolutely unhinged. They've got their agenda, and they want to tell you about how somebody's rights were, taken away from them. And you're like, And they're just having all these scuffles, and there's always screaming and yelling, and there's always some numbnut on a loudspeaker talking about something that just is like, what are you talking about? Just all this chanting and just nonsense. And they're all decked out in black bloc, and they've got masks on, and they have umbrellas. They're very violent. They have their ideology. They do their thing. But hey, let's see what CNN has to say. Let's see what CNN has to say as far as this whole thing goes, right? Trump says he's designated Antifa as a terrorist organization. President Donald Trump said he's Antifa, terrorist organization, the far-left anti-fascism movement. It wasn't immediately clear what mechanism Trump would use to make the designation. Antifa lacks centralized structure or defined leadership, making it unclear who or what precisely would be targeted. Well, they do that on purpose. They have leadership. We just don't know who it is. Need to do a little investigating, right? Rose City Antifa is one of the most well-known organizations out there. It's called Rose City Antifa, yet it lacks centralized structure. That is what the media wants you to believe, because that's what they believe. Oh, it's an idea. Remember that one numbnut politician? He's like, Antifa is a myth. He's just like, okay. And then we've got that statement by Trump. I'm pleased to inform many USA patriots. White House official told CNN this is just one of many actions the president will take to address left-wing organizations that fuel political violence. Antifa's been doing this for years, and they're very active here in the Pacific Northwest. Anytime some kind of Christian group shows up in town, they are there, Johnny on the spot, to basically do their thing, right? A lot of their stuff is protected under freedom of speech. Yes, but when you start talking about killing police officers, when you start talking about killing ICE officers, when you start talking about killing their families, that's when it goes to a level where I'm like, no, I'm not okay with that kind of thing being said. I'm just not. It's like, whether that's protected as freedom of speech, I think that's a push at best. But what you're seeing is pushback on Antifa. You're seeing pushback on the far left, because we've had years and years and years of mainstream media basically calling the right extremists and the right fascists. Now who's the fascist, right? Who's committing the acts of fascism now? Well, we don't like what you're saying, therefore you're going to take a shot to the neck. Okay, yeah. And who's the fascist? Yeah, interesting. Jimmy Kimmel lost his show temporarily or whatever. All right. How did his writers, was that on purpose? Was that whole thing on purpose? I mean, how do you have a whole organization that can't work out, that Jimmy Kimmel's going to try and pin this on MAGA? On this shooter being MAGA, which is just complete nonsense if you follow any of the information that's coming out. He lived in Utah. The Charlie Kirk killer lived in Utah. His family was MAGA, but he was dating a transvestite individual that was transitioning to a woman, or so we're told. Who knows, right? Who knows? Trump, who's overseas for a formal state visit, signaled the move earlier this week in remarks from the Oval Office. Hosts of administration officials have signaled in the wake of Kirk's assassination they'll be targeting what they claim is a coordinated left-wing effort to incite violence. It is, and it has been this way for quite some time. Remember when Biden was telling us that it's the far right is where all the violence is? It hasn't been the far right at all. In recent years, it's been the far left. I mean, $2 billion of insured damage during the Black Lives Matter, which was co-hosted by Antifa, because they always want to get in there for any good cause that they see, right? Anything just extreme and left, Antifa's gonna jump in. They're a hateful group. They're a violent group. and they basically conceal their leadership, conceal their organization so that they're harder to find and arrest and prosecute. Simple as that. And this is not new news. This is the way they've operated forever. The moves have drawn protests from some Democrats who allege Trump is creating a pretext to crack down on dissenting or opposing viewpoints. Well, I don't have a problem with cracking down on Antifa. I really don't. I think they're a violent organization. I think most of what they do is not protected under free speech. Because it crosses a line. It absolutely crosses a line. And when you're talking about killing law enforcement, which is what they talk about often, then that to me is a hard no-go, Article goes on to say in his first term, Trump vowed to designate Antifa as a terrorist organization, and his then Attorney General, William Barr, said its activities constituted domestic terrorism as well as Black Lives Matter. But Antifa, short for anti-fascist, here's where we start to figure out, here's what CNN's trying to say, is not a structured group. And that is what half of America will read and go, okay. But rather a more nebulous social movement. All right. So a nebulous social movement is out there organized, throwing bricks at ICE. And we've seen that time and time and time again. That's who's doing those activities. Right? That is who's doing those activities. And while it's illegal to provide material support to groups designated by the government as foreign terrorist organizations, there is not an analogous law for domestic groups. Don't have it for somebody from within the United States. Term Antifa is used to define a broad group of people. Aside from designating certain left-wing groups as terror organizations, Trump earlier this week also raised the possibility of revoking tax-exempt status for liberal nonprofit organizations, and his attorney general has raised the prospect of bringing criminal charges against groups or individuals who are allegedly targeting conservatives. Okay, I have zero issue with that. If somebody's targeting somebody else with violence, somebody is willing to shoot somebody else for having conversations on college campuses, that is extreme violence. You got to shut that down. You know what the thing is? We're never going to shut that down. There's always going to be this kind of stuff going on, right? There's a whole bunch of people that pop up and go, we've got to stop the violence. And you know what? Violence is ingrained in humanity. We've had wars forever. We're not going to do that. All we're going to do is we're going to put just a little bit of lipstick on top of the pig, right? I mean, that's what we're doing. The violence now is just limited to this, and this. It's like, no. So what you're seeing is basically a new player in the violent game called life, and that's Antifa. Antifa is terrible. There are other groups. We've had some pretty radical groups, and they got away with murder. Literally. Here's where I would say that is a thing. Antonio Mays Jr., background, Mays. This is at 𝗧𝗜𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗕. Mays, a 16-year-old from California, traveled to Seattle to join the protests. He was killed on June 29th, 2020, as 𝗧𝗏 was nearing its end. His killing caused the end of 𝗧𝗏. Make sure you guys can read this. Yeah. Incident. Mays and a 14-year-old boy, his sidekick, were in a stolen Jeep, a white Jeep Cherokee, that crashed into a barricade, after which armed protesters acting as security, reportedly shot at the vehicle. Well, that is not completely accurate. I was there the next morning and I was there the day before. There was 2 murders in 𝗧𝗏𝗃. The first one was over gambling debts, and Marcel Long went to jail for that one. He killed Horace Anderson. And this one here, so the day before, the Seattle Police Department and Seattle Public Works started taking down the concrete barricades from the streets. There's video of me live streaming that. And that was basically a test to see how much resistance there was to when the police finally came in and just kind of cleared things out. Well, they cleared things out the next day, I believe, or the day after this murder, something like that. It was super, super quick thereafter, June 29th, and I think it was August or July 1st, something like that, when CHOP got cleared out. So it was literally a few days. And by then, by the time of this shooting, all of Antifa, all of Black Lives Matter, they were camped out. What was left of them, they were camped out on the northeast corner of the Seattle Police Department's East Precinct building. And so when this kid came driving his car up, I think it was 11th Avenue, driving north, ran into a barricade. The Antifa was right there within, I don't know, 20, 30 feet, maybe it's 40 feet. And they just lit him up with fire. Just boom, 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 boom. I mean, I watched it was audio because you couldn't see the shots being fired, but I counted over 30 shots. And then the kid was still alive at the wheel. Antonio Mays Jr. was still alive at the wheel. And somebody made some just terrible remark to him. So which armed protesters acting as security reportedly shot at the vehicle. No, it was just who was left. It was just who was left. Police response. Police did not enter the area for hours, and the crime scene was disturbed. They cleaned it all up because Antifa murdered Antonio Mays Jr. Or you could view it as Antifa and Black Lives Matter murdered Antonio Mays Jr. Because it was co-opted, right? So when you want to say that Antifa isn't violent, nonsense, absolute nonsense. So investigation status. As of March 2025, Mays' killing remains unsolved. Interesting. His case was marked by issues including potential lost evidence and city officials using a rare attorney's eyes only confidentiality designation in civil suits to keep investigative details confidential. Why is that? Why is that? And then all of Seattle officials had their cell phone text messages deleted. Just happened. Mayor, chief of police, fire department. I mean, it's everybody down the line. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Things were happening so fast that they were texting in order to communicate. Couldn't do it via email. And then when they realized, yeah, if these texts get subpoenaed, they're going to see what really happened. We don't want that. So, hey, my cell phone, the IT got a hold of it and he deleted everything. Yeah, hey, my cell phone fell in Puget Sound. Lawsuits. Mays' family and the 14-year-old survivor have both filed lawsuits against the city alleging negligence in its handling of the CHOP zone. And that the issue there was, if you have an area where they don't want police, why would police go in there when a murder takes place? Why would that happen? It wouldn't. And so the families have said, hey, Seattle, you let an area get taken over by obviously extremists, murderous extremists, and my son got killed. 2 sets of parents, because the first one was 𝗧𝗓𝗏 Anderson, and he died early on. He was shot and killed on June 20th, 9 days after CHOP was established. He was shot multiple times after getting into an argument and physical fight with another person. CHOP volunteers tried to help him and drove him to the hospital, but he was pronounced dead shortly after. And, we saw some of the confusion there because an ambulance was sent in to the CHOP zone. But in a case where you've got a shooting, the police need to clear that out. So the ambulance basically couldn't go in there by law because you don't want an unarmed, medic driving in to some kind of ambush. You don't know what's going on. So they couldn't get this kid, 𝗧𝗓𝗏 Anderson, to the hospital in time, and he bled out. Horrific, horrible, terrible. Both of these were somebody's kids, and they were murdered. They ended up dead at an event that was co-sponsored by Black Lives Matter and Antifa. So somebody's responsible. We don't know who, but somebody is responsible, right? All right. So here's a little excerpt from the Washington Post. How do you think this is going to go? They're obviously not in favor. And Antifa adherents engage in a wide variety of activities, Bray said, primarily monitoring far-right groups and counter-protesting them. What has received the most coverage, he added, are occasional physical confrontations with those groups. Insofar as terrorism is setting off explosives and killing people, that's not what these groups ever do. I'm sorry, that is 100% incorrect. That is literally what they do. I watched Antifa try and set the federal building on fire August of 2021, I think it was. It might have been 2020. I can't remember. You know, it was after 𝗧𝗜𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔, so it would have been that same year, I believe. And, the feds had put up a brand new fence around the federal building in downtown Portland. And it took a crew of Antifa about 15 minutes to totally dismantle the fence. Maybe it was 20 minutes. I don't know. They just dismantled that fence. And then they tried to set the federal building on fire. They tried to light it on fire, which was a nightly occurrence. And officials in Portland said, yeah, they're peacefully protesting. Just let them do their thing. So setting off explosives, yes, and killing people. Well, we just talked about a bunch of examples of where they did kill people. These are news stories. All I'm doing is reading the news to you. So this is not that hard to figure out, right? Early 2017, University of California at Berkeley canceled a talk by right-wing figure Milo, I can never pronounce his last name, Yiannopoulos, after violence by masked agitators, some of whom appear to be affiliated with Antifa. If they're wearing a mask and they're all in black, they're in black bloc, that's Antifa. It's not a myth. It's not a loosely organized organization. That August, a planned demonstration turned violent when left-wing counter-protesters clashed with right-wing groups at Berkeley. Can Trump designate Antifa as a terrorist organization? That's the question, right? There's no legal mechanism in the United States for labeling purely domestic organizations as terrorist groups. For Trump to follow through on his social media declaration, his administration would need to create such a mechanism. Trump administration has shown a willingness to push legal boundaries in ways that many experts hadn't expected. And such an effort would surely draw challenges given the Constitution's broad First Amendment protections for free association and speech. But under U.S. law, the government can designate hostile groups as foreign terrorist organizations, label that carries key financial and legal consequences. It can do so because individuals and groups that are entirely foreign aren't protected by the First Amendment. All right. But these are local. These are local Antifa. So how are you going to go after them? Well, I think by start is basically labeling them as such in such a manner that people know, okay, all right, this is Antifa, and it's not an organization without leadership. It's not this loosely based myth type organization. It's not, just out of the ether. It's a real thing. It's a real deal. And that's kind of the start. You got to treat them like a criminal organization, like any other criminal organization, like MS-13 or like Tren de Aragua. They commit crimes. Go after them. That's what you need to do. Whether you're going to be able to do this by Trump, designating terror organization, I don't think so. I mean, that's just my opinion. Does this really go anywhere? Well, where it goes is that when Antifa does have these violent outbursts and when they do kill somebody, then they're on the hook. It's like a spotlight has been put on Antifa, as it should be, as any criminal organization should have a spotlight put on it. But Antifa's days of trying to hide behind their ideology, they come right out and basically declare that violence is a way for them to achieve their goals. They come right out and state that. There's videos of their leadership basically stating that. So when you know that going into it, it's like, okay, so they're going to break the law. They're going to beat somebody up. They're going to whack somebody in the head. They're going to dump a milkshake on them. They're going to kill them. They're going to, murder somebody coming into, in hot with the car into their compound that CDU Seattle gave up. I mean, City of Seattle was a laughing stock for letting Antifa and Black Lives Matter just basically run train on the city. Police had to stand down. That was just absolute nonsense. Look at how that ended. So the one takeaway from this is that now we've got a president who recognized this, Antifa, along with the likes of MS-13, 𝗪𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗔𝗬, all the other terrorist organizations out there that are coming in from other countries. ISIS, you know what I mean? So moving forward, when Antifa, it's not if, it's when Antifa makes its moves, there's a little bit more of a spotlight on them. That's kind of the way that I see this thing going down. At least there's a spotlight now instead of this imagination, this imaginary concept of, oh, they're not real. They're not real. I mean, that can't be Antifa's doing because they're not real. Now they're real. That's the way I see it. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.